One thing I'm really sensitive to when I travel from place to place is what trajectory somewhere is on. I don't just notice how things are in the immediate, but you can tell which direction things are trending in, and you get a different feeling and energy, and people have an overall different attitude between optimism and pessimism, depending on if the general population feels like somewhere is getting better and that they have things to look forward to in the future versus places where it's like, oh, our best times are behind us and things are now declining. So you have places where, as it currently is, they're not that bad, they're okay, but there's this general sense of decline, and younger people are feeling like they're not going to have it as good as their parents or even their grandparents in some cases. And the
Most of the first world you're describing right now.
well, I wouldn't even say all of it. I mean, even if you look at a country like the US, I mean, you've got certain cities, maybe like a New York City, San Francisco, and LA, certainly certain parts of it where, if you want to go back further, you've obviously got places like Detroit and so on, which have already experienced severe decline. But these sort of top tier global cities, as they've always been throughout my entire lifetime, there's generally a sense amongst people who live there and even people outside it that they're getting worse rather than better. Whereas you have cities in that same country in the U.S., whether that it could be Miami, it could be Dallas, it could be certain parts of Utah, it could be Las Vegas, where things seem to be on an upward trend. More and more people are coming rather than going. People generally have a sense of, oh, okay, this place is going to be better in 5 or 10 years than it is right now. And the feeling is palpable. The feeling is palpable. Some of it you can measure, but some of it is also just a sense generally amongst the population. I think it's hard to measure quantitatively how optimistic and positive people are feeling. It's very subjective, but it's something that you can quite quickly notice when you actually have your feet down somewhere and you are talking to people and interacting and just feeling I feel weird saying feeling the energy. It feels
Yeah.
very like vibey. Feel the vibes, man. But it's real.
Well, I think while you're saying it's hard to measure, that is those type of animal spirits are the most important thing, whether a place is going to develop and move forward, is
Mm,
the attitude of the people. And so while it is hard to measure, that's what you see in cities that are rising up, is that sense of optimism, that sense that people are willing to sacrifice today because they believe tomorrow will be better, versus places where they feel like, well, this is as good as it's going to get, and
yeah.
so we might as well just live for today. And El Salvador 5 years ago was the exact opposite.
Hmm.
People really felt like this was just terminal decline, and they really did live for the day. They didn't want to invest in their community because their plan was to leave to the US illegally for a lot of them. And so
Mm.
there was this real sense of despair, where now, like you're saying, you just show up and you show up in the airport and you just feel there's something different. You can't put your finger on it, but it's
Yeah.
it's in the air.
Yeah, it's even little things like the ride from the Uber into San Salvador, and I noticed it was at night, and I noticed all the lampposts, all the lights with the Salvadorian flag,
Hmm.
the blue, white, and blue, just all the way down the entire 45-minute journey, just seeing that, and I was like, that's cool, right? It's a small symbol, but it means something, right? Seeing the nation's flag like that lit up, it shows, okay, we at a minimum have pride in our nation. And we've intentionally put this from the airport because we want this to be the first thing that you see and that you sense. We want you to see thousands, no, not hundreds, thousands of our flags. And just that alone is cool. I mean, I'm from the UK, and I feel like in the UK these days, they'd almost be afraid to do that. It would
It's
be
hate
seen,
speech.
yeah, it would be, oh, that, it would be a bit gauche. Oh, it's a bit too
Yeah.
much. It's like, no, like, why, what's wrong with flying your nation's flag? I know in certain pockets of the US, there's that same mentality where, you have people who are very, it's like waving a US flag has now become some sort of, right wing Republican symbol or whatever. Oh, American flag means you're a Trump supporter or whatever it is. And I'm not American, but I know that earlier in my lifetime, it wasn't like that,
No.
right? Flying your nation's flag was not seen as just associated with a particular ideology or political party, let alone any type of animus, any type of bigotry or hatred or anything like that. I mean, it's really goofy. I think a country's not a country's cultural health is not in a good place when showing the national flag, something that actually all the people there are supposed to, unite under and in theory have some sort of positive association with is viewed by a significant chunk of the country as some type of hate symbol or sign of bigotry or sign of oppression or anything like that. So yeah, I'm a big flag fan. I like the fact that they wave the flag proudly.
Yeah, it's been fun for me to see because that was not, like I said, you go back 5 or 6 years and that was not happening.
Mm,
Most Salvadorans weren't that proud to be from El Salvador. Even when they're outside the country, they'd say like, "Oh, I'm from Central
yeah.
America," because it was known as the murder capital of the
Yep.
world. And oh, if I tell them Salvadoran, they're gonna think I'm a gang member. Where
Mm,
now you have this real sense of deep national pride. And so it's fun, as a resident who is very invested in the country. I'm not Salvadoran, but I have spent a good portion of my life here, raised my kids here. Um, it's amazing just seeing that transformation. So I feel a sense of pride. Maybe it's not my country per se, but I feel this
well,
secondary
it
pride.
is in a way. I mean, it is in a way. I mean, you've got people who are born here and then, they leave and they've been living, maybe they've got the passport, but they've never really lived here, haven't grown up here or something. And then you've got yourself, you've been here for what, 2 decades?
Yeah.
You've raised your children here and so on. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not even trying to get too philosophical here, but I think it's kind of interesting to even think of like, kind of, I don't know, what does it even really mean to be like from somewhere?
Yeah.
Because it's not always as clear cut as, what's your passport or what's your official nationality. You can live in a place and be in a place and really have a strong affinity for it, sometimes stronger than for your home country. And you really feel that sense of national pride. But I don't even think it's just the national pride. I think it's good to see human beings flourishing and doing better. I think if you have a genuine love for humanity, then it tends to go beyond the scope of just, quote unquote, your people or your nation. And it just generally makes you feel good to see people doing well and to see a community doing better, right? You talk about how it was 5 years ago and then you see it now and it's an improvement. And that's good to see. Just in the same way that it doesn't feel good when you go to, I don't know, downtown San Francisco and you're in one of the wealthiest cities in one of the wealthiest countries in the entire world, and you're just seeing all these people strung out on drugs and doing their fentanyl and their heroin and whatever, and there's just lying around, just sleeping on the street, and it's dirty and it's messy. It's just like it doesn't evoke a good feeling. It's just like, man, this is miserable. This is just human suffering and depravity, and maybe you don't have the individual power to really do something about it, but you want to. And I think that sense of powerlessness is one of the things that's also quite upsetting. But then, like I said earlier on, you've got the flip side of that, where when you just see people doing well, then yeah, I think if you are a decent person who cares about humanity, then it makes you feel good too, even if you're not from the place. Like it's my first time ever being in this country, and I feel happy for the people here. I feel happy that things are getting in a better direction. I'm totally aware that it's not fully developed and everything's not perfect and there's still massive amounts of issues and problems, but progress is good. Progress is good if things are getting better, then you give it a long enough time frame, and as long as the leadership is good and people behave in a certain way, then things will continue to improve.